What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I've broken the stories down into the timeline, and there is a list of the stories with time markers in the description below. So if you want to, you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story that you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. And if you have not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. Security software company Sophos has released a patch update for its Firewall product after it was discovered that attackers were exploiting a new critical zero-day vulnerability to attack its customers' network. The issue, tracked as CVE 2022-3236 with a CVSS score of 9.8, impacts Sophos Firewall version 19.0 MR1 or 19.0.1 and older, and concerns a code injection vulnerability in the user portal and web admin components that could result in remote code execution. Users running older versions of Sophos Firewall are required to upgrade to receive the latest protections and the relevant fixes. The development marks the second time a Sophos Firewall vulnerability has come under attack, or come under active attacks, within a year. Earlier this month, another flaw, CVE 2022-1040, was used to target organizations in the South Asia region. Hey, we're moving on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. In the first week of September, Aquasec researchers identified at least 3 different attacks targeting their honeypots. The experts associated them with the cybercrime gang TeamTNT. The TeamTNT botnet is a crypto mining malware operation that has been active since April 2020 and targets Docker installs. The new TeamTNT attacks are aimed at hijacking servers to run Bitcoin solver. The experts tracked the activity as the kangaroo attack because the threat actors were using Pollard's kangaroo whiff solver. The attackers scanned for vulnerable Docker statements, deploy an Alpine OS image, deliver a script, k.sh, and fetch the solver from GitHub. What we discovered is that TeamTNT has been scanning for a misconfigured Docker daemon and deploying Alpine, a vanilla container image, with a command line to download a shell script, this is k.sh, to a command and control server. The shell script is cloning a GitHub project from what seems to be a TeamTNT account. The project was a bit of a conundrum at first, specifying that this is a fork of Pollard's Kangaroo for SCC PK1s. The Pollard's Kangaroo Interval ECDLP solver algorithm appears to be an attempt to break the SEC 256K1 encryption, which is used by Bitcoin to implement its public key cryptography. The TeamTNT group is using the computational power of the compromised targets to run the ECDLP solver. Breaking the cryptographic encryption is considered mission impossible. If you actually succeed doing that, you potentially have the keys to almost everything that is connected online, which could have a devastating effect on the entire internet, continue the experts. According to the experts, the hacking gang is likely experimenting with new attack techniques. Aquasec researchers also observed the gang using attacks attributed in the past to its activity, such as the Cron B attack, but now using new feature improvements. The new variant of the Cron B attack relies on new command and control infrastructure and new data exchange. Experts also observed the What Will Be attack against their honeypots. The threat actor exploited a misconfigured Docker API to run the vanilla container image Alpine with a malicious command that was designed to download and run the shell file dc.sh. So the other one was k.sh, here is dc.sh. The attack aims at deploying a crypto miner on the target systems and performing SSH scans on the network. TeamTNT was highly active between 2020 and 2021. They had used many tools and techniques in their campaigns and had launched them frequently. Some of these tools had been designed to escape from container environments, steal tokens and credentials, scan and attack local and external networks, hide activities with rootkits, and more, concludes the report. Now TeamTNT appears to be back with new tricks. We're still assessing if these 3 attacks are a sign that they have resumed their campaigns against cloud native environments or not. American Airlines recently suffered a data breach. Threat actors compromised a limited number of employee email accounts. The intruders had access to sensitive personal information contained in the accounts, but The company's data breach notification states that it is not aware of any misuse of the exposed data. The security breach was discovered on July 5th. The airline promptly adopted the measure to mitigate the incident and secure the impacted email accounts. Then, American Airlines launched an investigation with the help of a leading cybersecurity forensic firm. The company announced that it is implementing additional technical safeguards to prevent a similar incident from occurring in the future. American Airlines is offering a complimentary 2-year membership of Experience Identity Works SM to protect the identity of the impacted users. The employees' accounts of American Airlines were compromised in a phishing campaign. While it was a phishing campaign, I'm not exactly sure how the technical safeguards are going to be able to help them improve. I think they would need to divert some more resources to education. Uber provided an update regarding the recent security breach of its internal computer systems. The company confirmed that there is no evidence that intruders had access to users' private information. The company did not disclose details about the attack. Several experts believe that it downplayed the incident and has no clear idea about the depth of the intrusion. Uber on Thursday suffered a cyber attack. The attackers were able to penetrate its internal network and access internal documents, including vulnerability reports. Uber notified law enforcement and started an internal investigation into the incident, a company spokesperson confirmed. According to the New York Times, the threat actors hacked an employee's Slack account and used it to inform internal personnel that the company had suffered a data breach and provided a list of allegedly hacked internal databases. The hacker claims to be 18 years old, as if that really matters. I mean, if you're 18 years old, you grew up with technology. You probably know it better than an 80-year-old. I'd be more surprised if they said it was an 80-year-old hacker. But anyway, the hacker claims to be 18 years old and added that Uber had weak security. In the message sent via Slack, he also said Uber drivers should receive higher pay. The 18-year-old hacker tricked an Uber employee into accepting a multi-factor authentication prompt that allowed him to register his device. Then the youngster, that little whippersnapper, gained access to an internal network share that contained PowerShell scripts with privileged admin credentials. One of the PowerShell scripts contained login credentials for an admin user in Thycotic PAM that the attackers used to extract secrets for all services used by the company, including DA, Duo, OneLogin, AWS, and G Suite. At this time, it's unclear the motivation behind the security breach. The Washington Post urged or argued that the hacker compromised the company's networks for fun. In a subsequent interview on a messaging app, the alleged hacker told the Post that they had breached the company for fun and might leak source code in a few months, reported the Washington Post. Uber revealed additional details about the recent security breach. The company believes that the threat actor behind the intrusion is affiliated with the LAPSUS hacking group. Over the last months, the LAPSUS gang compromised many high-profile companies such as NVIDIA, Samsung, Ubisoft, Mercado Libre, Vodafone, Microsoft, Okta, and Globant. We believe that this attacker, or attackers, are affiliated with a hacking group called LAPSUS, which has been increasingly active over the last year or so. This group typically uses similar techniques to target technology companies, and in 2022 alone has breached Microsoft, Cisco, Samsung, NVIDIA, and Okta, among others. UK police suspect that a 16-year-old from Oxford is one of the leaders of the popular LAPSUS group. Well, that can't be. He says he's 18. Uber added that it is investigating the security breach with the help of several leading digital forensics firms. We will also take this opportunity to continue to strengthen our policies, practices, and technology to further protect Uber against future attacks. The company explained the threat actors compromised the account of a Uber external contractor. They likely purchased the contractor's credentials on the dark web. But that external contractor had somehow on his system the ability to get admin rights or communicate with scripts that an external contractor most likely shouldn't be able to have access to. Anyway, the attacker attempted to log into the contractor's Uber account multiple times. Each time the contractor received a two-factor login approval request, and evidently, he finally accepted one of them, allowing the attacker successfully to log into the account. So if you're receiving rapid fire or, like 5 within a couple of minutes, two-factor authentications, then you probably shouldn't accept any. What may have happened is this guy's like, for some reason, somebody might be trying to get into my account. Let me change my password. And he tried to log in, and it said, check out for a two-factor authentication, and that just happened to coincide with the attacker doing it again. Just a scenario that I could have in my mind. How he got tricked into doing it, into approving the wrong multi-factor authentication token. On September 18th, 2022, threat actors that go on GTA forums as Teapot Uber Hacker shared on GTA forums a link to a rare archive containing tens of gameplay videos. More convincing is the footage showing a poolside conversation between a male player character and a couple of redneck associates. Twitter opens in new tab. Dialogue like, "Oh yeah, he's dead, is he? Just like there's a country called Finland." Comes off as extremely rockstar, and the voice acting quality checks out. As proof of the hack, the threat actors also shared screenshots of the source code from both Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6. According to Bleeping Computer, the threat actors claim to have stolen the source code assets and tested build of GTA 5 and GTA 6. The attackers are threatening the Rockstar Games to prevent further data leak, and at this time, an offering for sale on GTA 7 data. Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier, who cited sources at Rockstar, confirmed the authenticity of the leak. Chromeloader is a malicious Chrome browser extension. It's classified as a pervasive browser hijacker that modifies browser settings to redirect user traffic. The malware is able to redirect user traffic and hijack user search queries to popular search engines, including Google, Yahoo, and Bing. The malicious code is also able to use PowerShell to inject itself into the browser and added the extensions to the browser. Microsoft spotted an ongoing widespread click fraud campaign. The IT giant attributes the campaign to a threat actor tracked as Dev0796. Attackers attempt to monetize clicks generated by a browser, Node WebKit, or malicious browser extension they have secretly installed on victims' devices. This attack chain starts with an ISO file that's downloaded when a user clicks malicious ads on YouTube comments. Upon opening the ISO file, a browser Node WebKit nw.js or a browser extension is installed. Experts also observe threat actors using DMG files in order to target macOS systems. While thought to be just a credential-stealing browser hijacker, Chromeloader has been seen in its newest variants to be delivering more malicious malware and used for other nefarious purposes. As recently as late August, Chromeloader has been used to drop zip bombs onto infected systems. The malware was used to destroy the user system by overloading it with data. Experts also observe the use of Chromeloader to download the Enigma ransomware, which is distributed in HTML attachments found in the ISO archive. Upon opening the attachment, it'll launch the default browser, execute its embedded JavaScript, and then follow its standard chain. It's no surprise that this pesky adware has been one of our most frequent attacks. This campaign has gone through many changes over the past few months, and we don't expect it to stop, concludes VMware. As we've seen in previous Chromeloader infections, this campaign widely leverages PowerShell.exe and is likely to lead to more sophisticated attacks. Cybersecurity firm Imperva mitigated a DDoS attack with over 25.3 billion requests on June 27, 2022. According to the experts, the attack marks a new record for Imperva's application DDoS mitigation solution. The attack targeted an unnamed Chinese telecommunications company and stands out for its duration. It lasted more than 4 hours and peaked at 3.9 million requests per second. On June 27, 2022, Imperva mitigated a single attack with over 25.3 billion requests, setting a new record for Imperva's application DDoS mitigation solution. While attacks with over 1 million requests per second aren't new, we've previously only seen them last for several seconds to a few minutes. This one lasted for 4 hours and peaked at 3.9 million requests per second. The Chinese telecommunications company was already targeted by large attacks in the past, and experts added that 2 days later, a new DDoS attack hit its website, although the attack was shorter in duration. The average rate for this record-breaking attack was 1.8 million requests per second. Threat actors used HTTP version 2 multiplexing, or combining multiple packets into one, to send multiple requests at once over individual connections. The technique employed by the attackers is difficult to detect and can bring down targets using a limited number of resources. Since our automated mitigation solutions is guaranteed to block DDoS in under 3 seconds, we estimate that the attack could have reached a much greater rate than our tracked peak of 3.9 million requests per second. On Monday, September 12, 2022, Akamai mitigated the largest DDoS attack ever that hit one of its European customers. The malicious traffic peaked at 704.8 million packets per second, I think it is, and appears to originate from the same threat actor behind the previous record that Akamai blocked in July and that hit the same customer. Malicious actors continue to target organizations in the cryptocurrency industry. The last victim in order of time is crypto trading firm Wintermute. The company made the headlines after the threat actors had stolen around $160 million worth of digital assets. The company confirmed the disruption of its services in the coming days, but it pointed out that it is solvent with twice over that amount in equity left. It's always a red flag when people start talking about how much money they have left. Threat actors breached the company and performed multiple transactions and transferred multiple cryptocurrencies to a wallet under their control. The company states that the centralized finance and over-the-counter operations have not been impacted by the security breach. Out of 90 assets that have been hacked, only 2 have been for notional over $1 million and none more than $2.5 million. So there shouldn't be a major sell-off of any sort. We will communicate with both affected teams ASAP. The company did not disclose details about the attack. Gavoy said that it is open to negotiating a bounty with the attackers for having exploited a vulnerability in its platform. And let me guess, the bounty is going to be for like $1 million. You wanted to give back $160 million and you give them $1 million. Threat actors targeted tens of thousands of unauthenticated Redis servers exposed on the internet as part of a cryptocurrency campaign. Redis is a popular open source data structure tool that can be used as an in-memory distributed database, message broker, or cache. The tool is not designed to be exposed on the internet. However, researchers spotted tens of thousands of Redis instances publicly accessible without authentication. There were 39,405 unauthenticated Redis services out of 350,675 total Redis services on the public internet. So you go back a couple sentences, Redis instances should not be publicly accessible without authentication. Then they found 39,405 that are on the internet without authentication, out of 350,000 which are web-facing. Almost 50% of the unauthenticated Redis services on the internet show signs of an attempted compromise. The general idea behind this exploitation technique is to configure Redis to write its file-based database to a directory containing some method to authorize a user or start a process. The researchers used a recent list of unauthenticated Redis services running on TCP port 6379 to run a one-time scan that looked for the existence of the key backup1 on every host. Census found that out of the 31,239 unauthenticated Redis servers in this list, 15,526 hosts had this key set. These instances, based on having that key set, means that these instances were targeted by threat actors with the technique that was just described in the previous slide. Most of the internet exposed Redis servers are located in China with 15.29%, followed by Germany 14.11%, which is shocking, and Singapore 12.43%. More than 350,000 open source projects can be potentially affected by an unpatched Python vulnerability. Tracked to CVE 2007-4559 with a CVSS score of 6.8 that was discovered 15 years ago. The issue is a directory traversal vulnerability that resides in the extract and extract all functions in the tar file module in Python. A user-assisted remote attacker can trigger the issue to overwrite arbitrary files via a ... sequence in file names in a tar archive, a related issue to CVE 2001-1267. While investigating an unrelated vulnerability, Trellix Advanced Research Center stumbled across a vulnerability in Python's tar file module. Initially, we thought we had found a new zero-day vulnerability. As we dug into the issue, we realized this was, in fact, CVE 2007-4559. The vulnerability is a path traversal attack in the extract and extract all functions in the tar file module that allow an attacker to overwrite arbitrary files by adding the ... sequence to the file name in a tar archive. The experts pointed out that the issue was underestimated. It initially received a CVSS score of 6.8. However, in most cases, an attacker exploits this issue to gain code execution from the file write. Trellix shared a video proof of concept that shows how to get code execution by exploiting Universal Radio Hacker. SandSec researchers are warning of a hacking campaign targeting CVE 2022-24086 Magento 2 vulnerability. Magento is a popular open source e-commerce platform owned by Adobe, which is used by hundreds of thousands of e-stores worldwide. In February, Adobe rolled out security patches to address the critical CVE 2022-24086 flaw affecting its commerce and Magento open source products. At the time, the company confirmed it was actively exploited in the wild. Adobe is aware that CVE 2022-24086 has been exploited in the wild in very limited attacks targeting Adobe Commerce merchants, reads the advisory published by Adobe. The flaw is an improper input validation vulnerability that could be exploited by threat actors with administrative privileges to achieve arbitrary code execution on vulnerable systems. The CVE 2022-24086 has received a CVSS score of 9.8 out of 9. It is classified as a pre-authentication issue, which means that it can be exploited without credentials. Adobe Commerce 2.3.3 and lower are not affected by this vulnerability. A few days after its disclosure, Positive Technologies researchers created a working proof-of-concept exploit for the vulnerability. Now, SandSec researchers are warning of a new wave of attacks targeting the Magento 2 vulnerability, the security firm detailed. SandSec's researchers have detailed 3 attack variants exploiting CVE 2022-2486 to inject a malware on vulnerable systems. All the attacks analyzed by the security firm have been interactive, possibly because the Magento checkout flow is very hard to automate. The first attack pattern detailed by the experts starts by creating a new customer account and an order placement on the vulnerable system. The attackers use a malicious template code in the first and last names and place the order. It starts with the creation of a new customer account and an order placement, which may result in the failed payment, reads the SandSec report. The code downloads a Linux executable called 223sam.jpg and launches it as a background process called CLI, which is a remote access Trojan. The malware runs in memory and creates a state file IG or LG000, then pulls a remote server hosted in Bulgaria for commands. Experts pointed out that the rat has full access to the database and the running PHP processes. SandSec detailed a variant of the above attack, which injects the health_check.php backdoor. The attacker injects the placed order containing a specific template code in the VAT field. The code creates a file pub/media/health_check.php that accepts commands via post requests. A third-party variation of the attack replaces generated/code/magento/framework/apps/front controller interceptor.php with a tainted version. The hashtag #UpRussia, launched by Anonymous on Russia after the criminal invasion of Ukraine, continues. The popular collective claims to have hacked the website of the Russian Ministry of Defense. The group of activists has leaked the data of 305,925 people who are likely to be mobilized in the first of 3 waves of mobilization announced by President Putin as part of an escalation of the offensive in response to difficulties faced by the Russian army in the Ukraine. The group shared via Proton Drive a text file of 90 megabytes in size. The file contains names, birth dates, regions, and districts from more than 300,000 individuals. At this time, it's not possible to verify the exact source of the published archive. Sophos warns of a critical code injection security vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-3236 affecting its Firewall product, which is being exploited in the wild. The CVE 2022-3236 flaw resides in the user portal and web admin of Sophos Firewall, as exploitation can lead to code execution or remote code execution. A code injection vulnerability allowing remote code execution was discovered in the user portal and web admin of Sophos Firewall. The vulnerability has been fixed, reads the advisory published by the security flaw. Sophos has observed this vulnerability being used to target a small set of specific organizations, primarily in South Asia's region. We have informed each of these organizations directly. Sophos will provide further details as we continue to investigate. The company addressed the issue with the released Firewall version 19.0 MR1 or 19.0.1 and older. It also provided workarounds by recommending customers not expose portal and web admin to WAN and disable WAN access to the user portal and web admin. The company recommended to use VPNs and or Sophos Central preferred for remote access and management. Customers using older Firewall versions would have to upgrade to a supported version. In March, the security firm fixed another vulnerability tracked to CVE 2022-1040 that resides in the user portal and web admin areas of Sophos Firewall. The CVE 2022-1040 flaw received a CVSS score of 9.8, impacts Firewall versions 18.5 MR3 and earlier. The vulnerability was reported to the security firm by an unnamed security researcher via its bug bounty program. A remote attacker with access to the Firewall's user portal or web admin interface can exploit the flaw to bypass authentication and execute arbitrary code. The experts warned that the CVE 2022-1040 flaw was actively exploited in attacks aimed at a small set of Asian organizations. Password management solution LastPass shared more details about the security breach that the company suffered in August 2022. The company revealed that the threat actor had access to its network for 4 days in August 2022. LastPass CEO Karim Tauba explained that there is no evidence that the attacker had access to customer data. We have completed the investigation and forensics process in partnership with Mandiant. Our investigation revealed that the threat actor's activity was limited to a 4-day period in August 2022. During this time frame, the LastPass security team detected the threat actor's activity and then contained the incident. There's no evidence of any threat actor activity beyond the established timeline. We can also confirm that there's no evidence that this incident involved any access to customer data or encrypted password vaults. The company pointed out that the attackers did not have access to the master passwords of its customers' vaults because they haven't access to them. which means that only the owner of a vault can decrypt the vault data. Firstly, the LastPass development environment is physically separated from and has no direct connection to our production environment, which means you can deploy something to development or you can basically mess around with code there, and there's no direct connection or there's no direct deployment from the development environment to the production environment. Right? Secondly, the development environment does not contain any customer data or encrypted vaults. Some quick solutions that certain companies use is they take a backup from the production environment, bring it over to the development environment to make sure that there's data there to pre-populate data, and oftentimes there's user data in there, which is a bad thing. Thirdly, LastPass does not have any access to the master passwords of our customers' vaults. Without the master password, it's not possible for anyone other than the owner of a vault to decrypt vault data as a part of our zero-knowledge security model, states the notice. The company performed a check of its source code to verify its integrity after the attack. It added that developers cannot push source code directly from the development environment into production, as we just discussed before. The company also hired a leading cybersecurity firm to further enhance the source code safety practices adopted by the company. Kudos, excellent job. Researchers at security and compliance assessment firm OneKey warn of an arbitrary code execution via FunJSQ, which is a third-party module developed by Xiamin Zunwang Network Technology for online game acceleration that impacts multiple Netgear router models. The FunJSQ module is used in various Netgear routers and Orbi Wi-Fi systems. The issues affecting it were discovered in May 2022 and are now fixed. The issue related to the insecure update mechanism was tracked as CVE 2022-40620, while the unauthenticated command injection flow was tracked as CVE 2022-40619. All of these combined can lead to arbitrary code execution from the WAN interface. Netgear, which fixed the issue in June, pointed out that the vulnerabilities could be exploited only by an attacker with knowledge of the victim's Wi-Fi password or an Ethernet connection to the victim's router. Netgear is aware of vulnerabilities in FunJSQ, a third-party module integrated on some routers and Orbi Wi-Fi systems. This vulnerability requires an attacker to have your Wi-Fi password or an Ethernet connection to your router to be exploited. Researchers from Necrum Security Labs discovered a couple of critical vulnerabilities tracked to CVE 2022-36158 and CVE 2022-36159, impacting the Contec Flexlan FXA3000 and FXA2000 series LAN devices. These devices are installed in airplanes to offer internet connectivity to the passengers. The above vulnerabilities can be exploited by an attacker to compromise the in-flight entertainment system and potentially conduct other malicious activities. It is found that our wireless products, Flexlan FXA3000 and 2000 series, have a firmware vulnerability. There are possibilities of data plagiarism, falsification, and system destruction with malicious programs if this vulnerability was exploited by malicious attackers. We have a private web page for developers to execute system commands, which is not linked to any other web setting pages. There are possibilities of data plagiarism, falsification, system destruction, and malicious program execution if this vulnerability was exploited by malicious attackers who can access this private page with passwords and information. The issues impact Contec Flexlan FXA3000 series devices from version 1.5.00 and under, and Flexlan FXA2000 series devices from version 1.38.00 and under or lower. Russia-linked cyber espionage group Sandworm has been observed impersonating telecommunication providers to target Ukrainian entities with malware. Sandworm, aka Black Energy and Telebots, has been active since 2000. It operates under the control of Unit 74455 of the Russian GRU's main Center for Special Technologies, DTST. The group is also the author of the NotPetya ransomware that hit hundreds of companies worldwide in June 2017, causing billions worth of damage. The attack chain starts with spear phishing messages pretending to come from a Ukrainian telecommunication provider, sent to the victims in an attempt to trick them into visiting the malicious domains. The messages are written in Ukrainian, and the topics used in the attacks relate to military operations, reports, and other topics like that. The researchers published a report that includes details about the malware and the command and control infrastructure. The Warzone Rat malware may be old, but it still offers powerful features like a UAC bypass, hidden remote desktop, cookie and password stealing, live keylogger, file operations, reverse proxy, remote shell, and process management. Trendmicro researchers warn of an ongoing crypto mining campaign targeting Atlassian Confluence servers affected by the CVE 2022-26134 vulnerability. The now patched critical security flaw was disclosed by Atlassian in early June, at the time the company warned of a critical unpatched remote code execution vulnerability affecting all Confluence server and data center supported versions that is being actively exploited in attacks in the wild. We observed the active exploitation of CVE 2022-26134, an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability with a critical rating of 9.8 in the collaboration tool Atlassian Confluence. The gap is being abused for malicious cryptocurrency mining. If left unremediated or remedied and successfully exploited, this vulnerability could be used for multiple and more malicious attacks, such as a complete domain takeover of the infrastructure and the deployment information stealers, remote access trojans, and ransomware. In one of the attacks, spotted by the experts, threat actors exploited the flaw to inject an OGNL expression and download and run a shell script, ro.sh, on the victim's machine. Then the script was used to fetch a second shell script, ap.sh. The ap.sh shell script was used to perform multiple actions, including the update of the path variable to include the /temp and /dev/shm paths, downloading the curl utility, disabling the IP tables, or changes the firewall policy action to accept and flushes all firewall rules. The script also downloads a binary file named KO, which exploits the pawn kit vulnerability to escalate the privilege to the root user, while the binary file downloads the ap.sh shell script for the next actions. The last stage of the attack chain consists in downloading the HESB malware and kills processes that are associated with other competing coin miners. The shell script also disables cloud service provider agents from Alibaba and Tencent, then performs lateral movement via SSH. Attackers could take advantage of injecting their own code for interpretation and gain access to the Confluence domain being targeted, as well as conduct attacks ranging from controlling the server for subsequent malicious activities to damaging the infrastructure itself. Wiz researchers discovered a critical flaw in Oracle Cloud infrastructure that could be exploited by users to access the virtual disks of other Oracle customers. An attacker can trigger the flaw to exfiltrate sensitive data or conduct more destructive attacks by manipulating executable files. We found the vulnerability while working on the Wiz/Oracle Cloud integration. When trying to attach to another OCI user's virtual disk, we were surprised to find the operation succeeded. We received read-write access to disks in another account that does not belong to us, said Shir Tamari, head of research at Wiz, said in a series of tweets. Each virtual disk in Oracle's cloud has a unique identifier called OCID. This identifier is not considered secret, and organizations do not treat it as such. The experts discovered that once the OCID of a victim's disk is obtained, it's not currently attached to an active server or configured as shareable, an attacker could attach to it and obtain read-write access to it. Cloud tenant isolation is a key element in cloud. Customers expect that their data is inaccessible by other customers. Yet, cloud isolation vulnerabilities break the walls between tenants, reads the post published by the security firm. This highlights the crucial importance of proactive cloud vulnerability research, responsible disclosure, and public tracking of cloud vulnerabilities to cloud security. Experts added that the issue can be exploited only if the attacker's instance is in the same availability domain as a target volume. This condition can be easily met as the number of availability zones is relatively small, up to 3 in some regions, and can therefore be enumerated. Insufficient validation of user permission is a common bug class among cloud service providers, Wiz researcher Elad Gebay said. The best way to identify such issues is by performing rigorous code reviews and comprehensive tests for each sensitive API in the development stage. Optus, one of the largest service providers in Australia, disclosed a data breach. The intruders gained access to the personal information of both former and current customers. Following a cyber attack, Optus is investigating the possible unauthorized access of current and former customers' information, reads the data breach notification. Upon discovering this, Optus immediately shut down the attack. The company notified the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, which is helping it to mitigate any risks to customers. Optus has also notified the Australian Federal Police, the Office of the Australian Information Commission, and key regulators. Information that may have been exposed includes names, dates of birth, phone numbers, email addresses. Optus added that for a subset of customers, addresses, ID document numbers such as driver's license or passport numbers may have been compromised. Payment details and account passwords have not been exposed in the attack. Optus services, including mobile and home internet, are not affected, and attackers did not access the messages and voice calls. The company did not disclose details of the security breach. The experts warned current and former customers to be vigilant and monitor any suspicious activity. Optus has also notified key financial institutions about this matter. While we're not aware of customers having suffered any harm, we encourage customers to have heightened awareness across their accounts, including looking out for unusual or fraudulent activity and any notifications which seem odd or suspicious. YouTube is currently experiencing a worldwide outage, with thousands of reports saying they cannot access live streams. While the company has yet to acknowledge the issue, user reports shared on Down Detector show that most of those affected by this ongoing outage have problems with video streaming and accessing the YouTube website. When attempting to access YouTube streams, users see black screens with a loading animation and error messages asking to please try again later. Those who manage to load live streams say the video is laggy, with chat messages lagging or not showing up at all. Internet monitoring organization NetBlocks also confirmed that YouTube is experiencing a global outage that impacts live streams. NetBlocks added that this incident is unrelated to country-level internet disruptions or filtering. It is unknown at the moment if this is a planned maintenance activity, a problem with YouTube servers, or if the outage is related to malicious activity. And now we move on to other security news. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency adds new vulnerabilities to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog, including the bug used in a Stuxnet attack. CVE 2022-40139, Trend Micro Apex 1 and Apex 1 as a service. Trend Micro Apex 1 and Apex 1 as a service contain an improper validation of rollback mechanism components that could lead to remote code execution. Then the CVE 2013-6282 Linux kernel, the get user and put user API functions of the Linux kernel fail to validate the target address when being used on ARM version 6K or version 7 platforms. This allows an application to read and write kernel memory, which could lead to privilege escalation. Then the CVE 2013-2597 Code Aurora ACDB audio driver. The Code Aurora Audio Collaboration Database audio driver contains a stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability which allows for privilege escalation. Code Aurora is used in third-party products such as Qualcomm and Android. Then the CVE 2013-2596 Linux kernel FB_MMAP or mmap function in driver/video/FBMem.c contains an integer overflow vulnerability which allows for privilege escalation. CVE 2013-2094 Linux kernel again. Linux kernel fails to check all 64 bits of atr.config passed by user space, resulting to out-of-bounds access of the perf SW event _enabled array in SW perf event destroy. Exploitation allows for privilege escalation. Then there's CVE 2010-2568 Microsoft Windows. Microsoft Windows incorrectly parses shortcuts in such a way that malicious code may be executed when the operating system displays the icon of a malicious shortcut file. Then there's CVE 2013-2597 Code Aurora ACDB audio driver. The Code Aurora Audio Collaboration Database audio driver contains a stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability which allows for privilege escalation. Code Aurora is used in third-party products such as Qualcomm and Android. It is interesting to note that only the CVE 2022-40139 is a vulnerability publicly disclosed this year. It's an improper validation vulnerability affecting Trend Micro's Apex 1 platform. The police would track the burglars if they left calling cards at the attacked properties. Internet fraudsters usually leave a trail of breadcrumbs whenever they visit websites through specific IP addresses. They reveal their physical location and the device they use to connect to the web. While online fraudsters take precautions to hide their actual IP addresses, merchants can get valuable insight into their intentions by carefully analyzing accessible information. Due to the uniqueness of IP addresses, a network's host will always be able to know who's who. Since ISPs know the IP addresses assigned to each of their customers at any moment, these can help trace the online activity of scammers. To ensure they are detected, the first step of fraudsters is to mask their actual IP addresses. The first step in analyzing an IP address is to locate its owner and investigate further to learn more about the content of that address. This study may include the owner's location, the kind of network they operate, and any history of user fraud. Thus, behavior or user behavior, device details, and transaction speed are factors to consider. For risk assessment, non-anonymized IP addresses are helpful since they often reveal the user's physical location. Merchant fraud rates in different places also affect the rating system. The quality of data used in fraud prevention and the success of such prevention has a direct correlation. Despite the wide range of implementations, data reveals a wealth of information on the habits and whereabouts of scammers. Blocking connections from an IP address detected in fraudulent activities is a simple yet effective way to stop fraud. While an IP address can reveal a lot about an internet user, it rarely shows whether or not they are fraudsters. Though helpful, the information from an IP address analysis doesn't constitute the whole picture. When trying to piece together where a suspicious client comes from or their goals, you should evaluate IP addresses data and track record. You want to see if any identifiable trends emerge concerning the origins of your fraud and disputes. Whether you seek help from experienced specialists or do it independently doesn't matter. You can figure out how to eliminate chargebacks by analyzing the causes. While there are ways to protect privacy online, networked computers don't adequately hide their identities. Each linked host device has an assigned IP address to identify and connect with other devices on the network. The U.S. Federal Communications Commission has added Pacific Network Corp. ComNet, LLC, and China Unicom Operations Limited to the covered list. The covered list, published by Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, included products and services that could pose an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States or the security and safety of United States persons. These letters explain that the above companies are subject to the exploitation, influence, and control of the Chinese government and national security risks associated with such exploitation, influence, and control. The U.S. government believes the government of Beijing could force the company to conduct malicious activities such as intercepting and misrouting communications to gather intelligence against the U.S. The executive branch entities warn that PACnet and ComNet's interconnections to U.S. telecommunications networks and customers could be exploited by China to conduct or to increase economic espionage and collect intelligence against the United States, or otherwise provide a strategic capability to target, collect, alter, block, and reroute network traffic. The U.S. Commission also added Chinese state-owned mobile service providers, China Mobile International USA, and China Telecom Americas to the list. Below is the list of covered equipment, or there is a list of covered equipment or services added on March 25th. Information security products, solutions, and services supplied directly or indirectly by A.O. Kaspersky Lab and any of its predecessors, successors, parents, subsidiaries, or affiliates. Telecommunication services provided by China Telecom Americas Corp. Subject to Section 214 of the Communications Act of 1934. The covered list also includes other China companies such as Huawei Technologies Company, ZTE Technology, Hytera Communications Corporation, Hangzhou Hikvision Digital Technology Company, and Dahua Technology Company. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency added a recently disclosed security flaw in Zoho ManageEngine, tracked to CVE 2022-35405, with a CVSS score of 9.8 to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. According to Binding Operation Directive BOD 2201, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities, SCEV agencies have to address the identified vulnerabilities by the due date to protect their networks against attacks exploiting the flaws in the catalog. Experts recommend also private organizations review the catalog and address the vulnerabilities in their infrastructure. The CVE 2022-35405 flaw is a remote code execution vulnerability that impacts Zoho ManageEngine PAM360, Password Manager Pro, and Access Manager Plus. Zoho ManageEngine PAM360, Password Manager Pro, and Access Manager Plus contain an unspecified vulnerability which allows for remote code execution, reads the advisory published by CISA. Threat analyst at Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 discovered that the phenomenon of domain shadowing might be more prevalent than previously thought, uncovering 12,197 cases while scanning the web between April and June 2022. Domain shadowing is a subcategory of DNS hijacking, where threat actors compromise the DNS of a legitimate domain to host their own subdomains for use in malicious activity, but do not modify the legitimate DNS entities that already exist. These subdomains are then used to create malicious pages on the cybercriminal servers, while the domain owner's site, web pages, and DNS records remain unchanged, and the owners don't realize they have been breached. In the meantime, the threat actors are free to host command and control addresses, phishing sites, and malware dropping points, abusing the good reputation of the hijacked domains to bypass security checks. Unit 42 explains that detecting real cases of domain shadowing is particularly challenging, which makes the tactic so alluring for the perpetrators. The analysis mentions that VirusTotal marked only 200 domains as malicious out of the 12,197 domains Palo Alto's detectors uncovered. Most, 151, of the virus total detections were related to a single phishing campaign using a network of 649 shadow domains on 16 compromised websites. Furthermore, phishing pages hosted on domains with a good reputation would appear trustworthy to a visitor, causing them to more likely submit data on the page. The phishing campaign discovered by Palo Alto's researchers compromised 16 domains to create 645 subdomains, hosting bogus login pages or redirection points to phishing pages. The subdomains that redirect to the phishing sites can easily bypass email security filters as they don't host anything malicious and have a benign reputation. The threat actors target Microsoft account credentials, and while the URL is clearly not related to Microsoft, it won't trigger warnings from internet security tools. In one case, the domain owners realized the compromise, but not before numerous subdomains had been created and facilitated malicious operations on their infrastructure. While protection from rogue subdomains is the responsibility of the domain owners, registrars, and DNS service providers, it would be prudent for users always to be wary when submitting data. This includes the possibility that the subdomain on a well-known domain can be malicious, and for users to double-check everything before they submit credentials or other sensitive information. And that's the news. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride. Farewell.